It was supposed to be the perfect getaway, away from the bustling city, the stress, and the constant noise. Rachel and her friends had chosen Lembah Seribu, a village known for its pristine nature, untouched beauty, and quiet isolation. A weekend in the heart of the forest, where time seemed to slow down, where nothing could go wrong. As the car approached the village, the trees seemed to reach down like fingers, casting long shadows across the winding road. The houses, old and worn, stood at odd angles, as if they had been there for centuries. Yet, despite the quiet, there was something unsettling about the place. The kind of stillness that made the air feel thick, heavy. The house they rented was a small cottage at the edge of the village, hidden behind thick trees. Its wooden walls were painted a faded blue, the roof sagging ever so slightly, but it held a kind of rustic charm. Inside, the furniture was old but well maintained, covered in dust, as if someone had left long ago but made sure it remained untouched. The air inside smelled faintly of old wood and earth. For a moment, it felt like stepping into another time, a forgotten place where the past lingered in the corners. But none of them thought much of it. The calmness, the quiet, seemed like a blessing, a retreat from the busy world they had come from. As night fell, the village seemed to sink deeper into the silence. The air turned colder, and the sky, once clear, was now covered with clouds, blocking out the moon. The house, once warm and inviting, now felt darker. The wind began to pick up, howling against the walls, making the windows rattle. Inside, the friends sat around the fireplace, the warmth of the flames casting flickering shadows across the room. They tried to shake off the uneasy feeling that had begun to settle in their minds. But as the minutes passed, the silence outside grew heavier, more oppressive. The air felt colder, as if the house itself was holding its breath. And then, it started. At first, it was just a soft tapping. A gentle rapping against the window, like the wind pushing a branch. But the sound didn't stop. It became more rhythmic, more deliberate. The tapping echoed through the house, sharp and loud, as though someone, something, was knocking at the door. They tried to dismiss it as the wind. But it wasn't the wind. It was something else. Something waiting. As the night wore on, the house became more unnerving. The tapping had stopped, but now there were other sounds, soft, dragging footsteps from above, as though someone was walking slowly across the floorboards. The creaks, the groans, the low hums, they seemed to come from everywhere. The walls, the floor, even the air. The shadows in the corners of the room stretched longer, their shapes shifting as though they were alive. The once comforting fire flickered wildly, casting eerie shapes on the walls. The air grew colder, so cold that their breath was visible in the dim light. The whispers started, soft at first, but gradually louder. They seemed to come from all around, from the very walls themselves. There was no language in those whispers, only a sense of urgency, a low hum that vibrated in the chest. It was as if the house was trying to communicate, but no one understood its message. They looked at each other, their faces pale, but none of them spoke. They couldn't. They were too afraid to move, too afraid to even breathe too loudly, as if the very act of making noise might disturb whatever was lurking in the shadows. The sound from upstairs grew louder. Someone, or something, was walking in the attic. But there was no one else in the house. Hesitantly, one of them made their way up the stairs, drawn to the source of the noise. The stairs creaked underfoot, each step echoing louder in the heavy silence. At the top, there was only darkness. The attic door was slightly ajar, a cold draft spilling out from within. Inside, an old chest sat in the corner. The air was thick with the smell of rot and dust, but there was something else, something ancient, like a presence. The chest had been left undisturbed for years, but now, something seemed to stir inside. Inside the chest, there was an old journal, its pages yellowed and fragile. The handwriting was faded, but it spoke of a ritual, a forgotten pact with the spirits of the forest. The village had made a deal, one that kept them safe. But the price, the journal warned, was high. The forest takes back what was stolen. Beware the night. But before they could make sense of it, the noise returned, the dragging sound. It was louder now, closer, as if something was moving in the dark, creeping toward them. The door slammed shut behind them. They ran, their hearts pounding in their chests. The wind outside had stopped, the air dead still, as if the world itself had paused. But something followed them. The shadows stretched long, and in the distance, there was movement in the trees, figures, watching them from the edges of the forest. They could feel eyes on them, cold, unblinking. They reached the front door. But it wouldn't open. The knob turned in their hands, but the door remained sealed. The whispers grew louder, now more distinct, chanting in a language they couldn't understand. The house groaned, the walls shaking, and the floor seemed to pulse with the rhythm of an ancient heartbeat. Finally, the door creaked open, and they fled into the night. But as they stepped outside, the village had changed. The once peaceful streets were now twisted, the houses decayed and broken, as if they had aged decades in moments. And the figure in the distance? Gone. But the whispers remained. Some say the village of Lembah Seribu is cursed. It only reveals itself to those it deems worthy. But once you see it, once you hear the whispers, there is no escape. The spirits of the forest are always watching. And sometimes, they do not let you leave.